Well, it's the weekend, and when the weekend happens, so does Michael Snyder. And here he is.
Hey, everybody, I am a happening. Greetings from L.A. and the left coast. We've got movies to check into, some new stuff, and I guess we should plunge right in. How about that?
Okay, do it.
All right. War for the Planet of the Apes is happening this weekend, and I ain't monkeying around here. This is the finale of the new Planet of the Apes prequel trilogy reboot reinvention, and it's the best of the three recent films and one hell of a good movie on its own merits. Just to catch you up, Planet of the Apes was based on a novel by a French author named Pierre Boulle, and it came out in 1963, and it was kind of social satire, and it spawned a movie that took a different tact in terms of what actually happens in the story, and the movie in 1968 was a big hit with Charlton Heston, and we can quote stuff from it, and, get your hands off me, you damn dirty apes, and so on and so forth. But in any event, it went on to spawn all these other films. I think a total of 5 original films, and then a TV series, and then an animated series. And finally, after a number of years, Tim Burton remade it in 2001, trying to do the first story again. And man, that movie was terrible. So when this one comes about, this current trilogy, I was a little skeptical. It's great. It's just great. Essentially, it's about the rise of intelligent apes on Earth and how it impacts human society. And in this most recent one, Caesar, who is the first of the talking, evolved, and I might add charismatic apes, is looking to lead his fellow apes to freedom from the aggressive sector of humanity that's threatened by the rise of an ape society. It's all very Moses-like, and an evolution from the original novel and the first series. But these apes are being hunted by soldiers led by a driven military officer played by Woody Harrelson. And this guy's trying to basically eliminate the apes before humanity is overwhelmed or destroyed by a virus that appears to be, are you ready for this, devolving humans. So there are, I don't know, no ape flu inoculations, and apparently if there are any, they're not easily available under Trump care. Anyway, the once dominant human race is being devastated by this worldwide plague that renders them primitive, and thus the clash continues. It's the second movie in this trilogy to be directed by Matt Reeves, who did Cloverdale and Let Me In, after Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, which was written by a guy named Mark Bombach, who shares writing duties on this one with Reeves. These are fantastic films. I love them. I mean, I didn't go ape over the first of them, directed by Rupert Wyatt, but I was impressed by its clever, canny world building, its new take on the source material. But the second one impressed me, and this one blew me away. The one constant, other than the amazing motion capture rendering of the apes, has been Andy Serkis as Caesar, who was initially sweet and becomes the orating, thoughtful leader of this rapidly advancing simian species. I mean, if Serkis, who is a pioneer among motion capture actors, having brought Gollum to creepy life in the Lord of the Rings movies, if he doesn't start getting nominations for this third and most impressive go-round as Caesar, something is very wrong. This movie is smart, allegorical, political, and tragic, and disturbing. Like much good science fiction, it's a cautionary tale. By the way, lovely supporting work in ape roles by Steve Zahn, among others, and Judy Greer. I think this movie is just fantastic and totally worth seeing on the big screen if you get a chance. Moving on, Lady Macbeth is not really an adaptation of Shakespeare per se, but it has the tone and feel of the tragic character from Macbeth, who was the undoing of her husband. And what this movie, Lady Macbeth, loses in its dark, downbeat mood, it more than makes up for in its depiction of female oppression in mid-19th century rural England. Essentially, it's about a woman roughly, in her late teens, named Catherine, attractive, cunning, and sullen, who is sold into a loveless marriage to a very well-to-do man who, by the way, has no real desire for her other than as breeding for an heir, which is desired by his crusty father, who's also prowling around and being basically oppressive. So this woman is trapped on her husband's dank, windswept family estate, told to stay indoors, and often left to her own devices. So she ends up getting involved with a randy and lowly groomsman on the estate, and of course complications and transgressions of all sorts ensue. What's really remarkable about this film is the revelatory performance by newcomer Florence Pugh as Catherine. It is a stunning piece of work. The movie is directed by William Oldroyd, written by a woman named Alice Birch, and actually developed from a novel that basically invokes the name Lady Macbeth, but again is not specifically about the Shakespeare character. This movie may not be to your taste. She reminds me, by the way, this young actress Florence Pugh, a little bit of Rachel Weisz, a little bit of Diana Rigg, but she's her own thing. She's on the rise. I had never seen her before in anything, but she is tremendous in Lady Macbeth. High marks for this one. It might be something you could chew over on streaming in a bit, or, maybe it's just not to your taste, but I still thought it was pretty great. Speaking of streaming, available on Netflix and perhaps in a couple theaters, we have To the Bone, which is writer-director Marty Noxon's message movie intended to give us the skinny, if you will, on anorexia nervosa, or at least an autobiographically inspired look at the disorder. Lily Collins, she of the caterpillar eyebrows and the rock star dad, that being Phil Collins, is a deathly thin, Los Angeles-based 20-year-old named Ellen, whose battle with anorexia looks like it's going to be lost until she goes to a group home. Previously, the character had been kicked out of other treatment facilities because of her bad attitude, and her family, particularly her stepmom, played by Carrie Preston of True Blood and Person of Interest and other TV programs, and her half-sister, they're at their wits' end. We don't even see her father, really. With one last chance to get herself right, Ellen moves into the group home where expert care and the camaraderie of her peers, snarky and genuine, might save her. Noxon is best known for her work in TV fantasy as a writing staff luminary on some very popular genre shows, most significantly Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Once Upon a Time. This strikes me as a passion project and totally real, close to the bone, if you will. And although it features some of Noxon's trademark dry wit, it really paints a harrowing and probably accurate picture of the ravages of anorexia, helped in no small part by Collins' willingness to go all De Niro by apparently diving down to all skin and bones for the part. I mean, there's a little bit of TV movie vibe. Of course, you'd expect it. It is on Netflix, but it's the best role and most complete performance to date from Collins in the course of a very brief acting career. There's even a good performance from Keanu Reeves as a doctor at the group home. Really, no joke. And the usual expert work from Lily Taylor as Ellen's mom, who lives in Phoenix and can't take in her damaged daughter at the kid's lowest ebb. This is probably worth watching on Netflix, but again, kind of like Lady Macbeth, it is a difficult ride. Speaking of difficult rides and autobiography, let's wrap up with Endless Poetry. I'd call 88-year-old Chilean-French filmmaker Alejandro Jodorowsky's autobiographical fantasia, Endless Poetry, I'd call it Fellini-esque, as it conjures a very surreal look at Jodorowsky's youth and his progress into manhood and artistry. He's best known for the highly decorated, critically acclaimed art house classics El Topo and The Holy Mountain, but Jodorowsky was also the main creator behind a doomed but insanely creative movie version of Frank Herbert's Dune, one that would have been considerably wilder than David Lynch's version. Jodorowsky's Dune was never completed, although there's a very cool recent documentary about the making of the movie. Nonetheless, Endless Poetry, his latest, was completed and now released, and we're the better for it. As anybody familiar with his earlier work would expect, it's trippy. It's often like kind of a dreamscape with circus acts. There's a midget Hitler, a stilt walker, and mask-wearing pedestrians out front of the store run by the young Alejandro's tyrannical father with the support of Alejandro's opera-singing mother. The lad wants to pursue a life of creativity, but Papa is opposed. Still, Alejandro feels the lure of poetry and great literature, and at 20, leaps into the bohemian world of Santiago, Chile, starts hanging out with soon-to-be famous authors and their acolytes for inspiration, and seeks truth, beauty, romance, and a career in the arts. It's kind of wild stuff, but man, I love the guy's films, and this was worth every second. Endless poetry. They did not give reviewers, or this reviewer, a chance to check out the horror film Wish Upon, which also opens this weekend. But I will note that The Big Sick, which I raved about, which is also autobiographical to an extent, has gotten a wider opening this weekend. Wonderful, wonderful film. And all about and starring Kumail Nanjiani from Silicon Valley on TV, and it's all about his relationship with an American girl, played beautifully, I might add, by Zoe Kazan, with good support from Holly Hunter and Ray Romano as her parents. I recommend The Big Sick big time. What are you watching on TV or in the films?
First of all, I disagree with you about Jodorowsky. I think he's one of the most pretentious, overrated directors of all time. I knew the guy, and he's basically a phony. So anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, that's fine. I love the
he attempts to con his audience, and apparently he conned you. Anyway.
Oh well, it's like an opinion.
Yeah,
everyone's got one.
Yeah, no, it's my opinion, and it counts. Anyway.
To you, but okay. Did you see the Dune documentary? Did you see it at all?
The what? No, yes.
I love that. I love what it promised.
No, I could hardly get through it. Anyway, the only thing I've got is The Defiant Ones on HBO, which is the documentary about Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine, and it lasts 4 hours, and it is absolutely riveting. So I will recommend that to people. So
and you're a big hip hop fan, right?
Yeah, I'm a big hip hop fan. Yeah, absolutely.
You bust a move on a regular basis. Anyway, okay. I am excited.
I believe bust a move is about a 30-year-old phrase. I think you better get up to date if you're gonna.
That's what
you're gonna pick up the chicks in bars. Anyway,
I'm speaking your language. Anyway, Game of Thrones is coming back. And in the meantime, okay, you can catch me on Twitter at Culture Blaster, and also on Facebook at Michael Snyder's Culture Blast page.
Okay, and there's more GABNet coming right up.